Thank you for joining us. This is Health Your Own Way podcast, and I am your host, Akins. Welcome to another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about stress management, and my guest speaker is Aaron Morton. He's a personal trainer for over 10 years, training busy professionals get fitter, leaner, and stronger. So I'm really glad to have this conversation because I don't think a lot of us talk about stress. We all deal with it. So welcome, Aaron. Before we start, anything else you want to add?
No, that was a good introduction. Thank you. Welcome, Mo. I look forward to this conversation.
I appreciate that because I know I'm stressed. I'm stressed every day of my life, but we're trying to manage it. So I guess before we start, everybody has their own idea of what stress is specifically mean. So what does stress mean to you, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, stress has many definitions depending on what kind of organization you go to in relation to when they're talking about stress. But the one definition that I really like is from the Harvard professor Robert Sapolsky, because he almost puts it into two phases. He said stress is a stressor to the homeostatic balance, and the stress response is what you do to get it back to balance. So homeostasis sounds quite elaborate, but all it basically is that your body is in balance all throughout the day, your water balance, your body temperature, and if you have a stressor, it changes that homeostasis in some way, and how you go about changing that is the stress response. And stress can relate to anything for any person because there's a certain subjective nature to it. Because we all create our subjective reality, and what you interpret as stress or what you imagine in the future as being a stressor can change those responses within the body for you. So increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, tunnel vision on whatever you're focusing on. So stress as a definition is an off balance of that homeostatic balance, and then whatever you try and do is a stress response then.
I like when you said that, stress is objective because you're right, everybody is different. Like what can stress me cannot stress you, right? Right. And so I appreciate you saying that because the assumption is that, everybody has the same level of thought process, to a certain extent. And then everybody, if I'm stressed, why aren't you stressed? If you're stressed, why aren't you stressed, correct, right? Yeah. So then I guess
look at what happened look what happened with COVID and everything like that. Essentially, people responded into it in different ways, and how people responded to that allowed their ability to be able to cope with the situation. So some people felt that they coped better than others, and there's a lot of stress going around, and that extends more into society more as such.
It's true because I think certain part of COVID I managed. Certain parts I did not manage. But again, you said manage stress response. I think over time, as it normalizes and as you find a way to cope. So then that is a great segue to respects to how do you manage stress? Like, for people that were dealing with COVID or just in general life, what are some ways that they can manage stress in their life?
Well, I've got a program called Stressless, and I put it into three kind of stages that run over time. So it's a before, mid, during, and after, which I call the 3 R's essentially. And so you've got readiness, which is the before, resilience, which is the during, and recovery, which is the after. So in each stage of that, so readiness is about littering your life with mini challenges so that you define less things then as stressful. So for example, within this situation, I like to think about as metaphors of what you do. So, for example, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and when you first start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's all a bit strange and or a bit weird because it's grappling on the ground. That's something that you don't really do in everyday life. So it's the adrenaline level is high. You start making mistakes because you try and push the person away and everything like that. And as you get better, you realize that actually you want to keep your hands close to your body and everything like that. But what that does then is that because you do that, it creates a metaphor for other situations in life. So you're like, well, when I first started that, I was stressed. I was adrenaline was running wild, but then I learned to deal with it, and I got better at it. Now, in this situation at work, if I take that same metaphor, I realize that at the moment I'm in a stressful situation and the time will pass. So that's the resilience part. That's the middle part, what you do during the stressful encounter, and how you learn to deal with it. So that can be self-talk, breath work. But then, as you probably know yourself, like we can all deal with stress. It's the chronic stress that's the problem. It's the chronic stress that's related to increased chance of weight gain, heart disease, and diabetes as such. So it's actually the recovery phase, how we deal with the stress afterwards, and it's about littering your life with many things that relax you. So I was speaking to a client a few weeks ago, and I said, "What do you do to deal with your stress?" And he had no real answer. He didn't really know, and so it's no surprise that he encounters many stressful experiences. So how I manage stress is I see it in three components, and being able to almost increase your skill set in those three areas can help you manage stress in a more effective way.
So when you're talking, I recently started delving into more stress, because when you talked about work and stuff like that, I dealt with stressful situation recently, and I'm just like, when you said breath work and stuff like that, it was really, I remember doing that myself. And the resilient part, I like when you said it's more of teaching your body, at that moment, how to deal with the situation. Over time, it becomes easier, and that could be applied in different parts of your life. That's what I understood from you, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the idea that you can't necessarily eliminate stress, but you can reduce both the intensity and stress, reduce the amount of situations you define as stress, and also then recover much more effectively when you do encounter stress. So there's many stages in that process.
And my question to you is, why is it important for us to be able to deal with stress like that? Because you made a comment about dealing with weight, but like just mentally, like specifically people are watching or listening, like the fact that they don't know how to deal with stress, why is it important to even learn how to deal with stress?
Well, a few years ago, I was training quite a few lawyers and things, and and the thing about lawyers and things, they always go on holiday, and so when they came back,
Like they don't work.
you would always say like, how was your holiday? And commonly what they would say is like, it was great, but at the start of the holiday, I got the flu. And it was so common that he was like, well, something's going on here. And I was reading this book on the immune system, and she talks about something called leisure sickness, which is the idea that if you're in a like a
Hold on,
job
you
where,
said leisure sickness, right? I just want to make sure.
yeah, leisure
Leisure.
sickness.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. So if you're in a high powered job as such, and you do like long hours and things like that, before you go on holiday, you almost supercharge it. You need to delegate your jobs to other people and things like that. So you push the accelerator a little bit more, and as a result, your immune system is suppressed a little bit. But at the same time, it says, well, I ain't got time for illness. So it kind of withholds it a little bit. And when you go on holiday, it's the first time that you've actually relaxed. And so then your immune system starts to say, well, we've got the flu now. We get more like flu-like symptoms. So it's very common that you get this, and this is why it's important to be able to deal with stress, because the immune system can generally deal with a lot of things. But if stress is encountered in your life on a regular basis, then the immune system can take a bit of a battering, and then things that would normally be able to deal with get through. So like cold, flu-like symptoms, things like that. Because a lot of times what the stress will be is increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, and then that leads on to chronic stress. Like a simple example, if someone got multiple emails, there's this thing called screen apnea, where the idea is that you hold your breath briefly just as you're reading that email. But if you imagine how many emails people read, that's a lot of breath holding over the day, and a lot of blood pressure going over the day. And then if you extend that to a week and then a month, so the ability to deal with stress is good for your well-being, because what happens when you have chronic stress is you have an increased rate of weight gain, increased rate of illness, increased rate of heart disease later on down the line. You just get tired a lot, and as you said in your blog today, you know the hormones related to eating more increase hunger, get off onsetted as well, and even more so when it has trouble with your sleep as well. So there's a knock-on effect, like it's feedback loop with your body, which is an increased reason why it's good to deal with stress.
I appreciate you saying that. And I think if anybody was, because you mentioned earlier that you offer a service like the 3-part R's. I'm not going to speak. So if anybody was interested in, learning how to manage stress or even get more information about what you offer, what is the best platform to reach you out on? So before you answer that question, also tell us what the name of the program is one more time. I forgot. Yeah. So I feel like I'm not doing diligence to it.
It's called Stressless, essentially. So yeah, so that, the 3-part process is talked about within that program. And I got a website called Fit by Health, and then my Instagram is Aaron Morton CO. And then I got a Facebook group which is Fit by Health as well. So in those places, I talk about not just stress, but health, fitness, well-being. Talk about emotional eating quite a bit as well on there. So I see things as more like a holistic, like systems-based thing. So it's not just talking about fitness; it's talking about a whole host of other things as well.
I love that. So we're gonna have your details in the video as well as in the short notes. And I think before we let you go, anything else that you're delving into, or anything else that you want to say before we let you go today, Aaron?
Well, I'm starting an online personal training, because a lot of my clients are live face-to-face at the moment. So I'm offering an online program that you can probably find out more about on Instagram. And I'm in the process of creating a new program at the moment around emotional eating and creating like a toolbox for the best psychological things that you can utilize to reduce or hopefully eventually end emotional eating, because that gets in the way a lot of people's ability to get leaner or get healthier. It's that ability to handle emotional eating in an effective way. So
I wish you all the best, because I know a lot of people struggle with emotional eating. Like even stress is part of emotional eating too, right? Like you're stressed and you deal with, so I think a lot of people that do suffer automatically eating, it makes you feel good. You enjoy it, but then it's only short-lived, and then you get stressed because you ate too much, and then you're back. It's like almost a cycle, right?
It's that cycle again, absolutely. And stress is a big factor in that, as well as boredom and anxiety as well. So it's almost like a way of trying to handle those emotions. And if you can handle those emotions more effectively, there's less need to eat in that way. For those reasons, you can eat for pleasure or the best of times, but to change emotions is always a recipe for disaster.
I appreciate it. I want to say thank you for having this conversation. I think it's good that you offer the service, because a lot of people, when it comes to personal training or even asking for that, some people don't realize how much stress or even emotional eating affects their ability to actually reach the goals they're looking for. So it's good that you offer that service.
Well, hopefully I can do it for more people as well. So that'd be good.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, thanks for your help. Thanks. See you later.
We're glad to have you join us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share with anyone that needs to be empowered and inspired, and don't forget to join us next week for the next episode of Health Your Way podcast. Have a good day, you guys.